Hi, everybody. What, Jessica?
I was just waving because we went live. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Scenes. And we are glad to be back with you guys. We missed last week, right? Did we miss last week?
Yeah, Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, yeah. It was that holiday thing. So we're glad to be here with you guys. And we are going to be talking about a suggestion that Franziska gave us, it shows up a lot in our Facebook group. Which is Working Hard to Raise Teens, and we've written about it, and it is complicated. It's a complicated topic. So the topic is co-ed sleepovers, and it's so much about trying to control teenagers from being teenagers in the ways that terrify us. So it means, for me, it meant alcohol, sex, drugs, probably rock and roll. But whatever it was kind of like everything I was anxious about in general was thrown into this question of, is a co-ed sleepover okay? So in my house, it entirely depended on the age. The difference between a freshman and a senior to me are night and day, because my senior is about to go to college where I don't even get to weigh in on whether they have sex in their room with their roommate there or not there, or what it even looks like, right? So when my kids were younger, I had this sense that good mothers don't say yes to this. And I would put it that way to my kids, which they could kind of understand. Not that they didn't hate me, but they kind of understood. And then I softened as years went on and as kids went on. But in the early days, that felt entirely inadmissible, like not even open for conversation. So I don't know. Jump in, guys. What do you think?
Okay, I hate them. I hate them all. I hate co-ed. I hate single sex. I hate them all. I hate every single sleepover because to me, they are, in my house, I think I have control, but I really don't, because what I have is children who set alarms at 4 a.m. and then leave my house.
Okay, that's a story we haven't talked about. That is awesome.
Yeah, so, I have that. But, to me, nothing good, honestly. Anything that happened with my kids when they were growing up, that wherever rules got broken, always involved a sleepover. It was happening either at my house without my knowing it, like I said, setting an alarm, or it was happening at somebody else's house, or it was happening at a house where I thought they were where I thought they were somewhere else. So to me, sleepovers, I felt like I had to do them, but I hated every second of them. And so now you throw in boys, no, not happening. So yeah, I had to jump right in there because God, I hate them. All right.
I'm with you, Eka. And I'm right in the midst of it, and I feel like, COVID pretty much put a stop to it, right? There was no sleepover for 2.5 years, and now it's coming like with a full force, and I feel like I'm like not equipped to handle it. I'm like every other week they're like, can we have this sleepover? Can we go to that sleepover? And I feel like I'm giving up way too much control, but I also at the same time, I don't want to be responsible for all these kids coming over here. And then I'm in charge. And if something goes wrong, it's all on me.
It's so fraught. It's just so complicated, because we want our kids to be part of the social life, and we don't want to pull them out of it because we say no sleepovers. But which kid comes home from a sleepover, co-ed or not co-ed, that the next day isn't ruined? Like, it is a pair of a day, right? Who wants that? Why plan for that?
When they were little, I would carefully choose which days of the week they were allowed to do these sleepovers, because they're going to have a hangover the next day. And I preferred it to be a Friday and do Saturday, because I didn't want them to have the hangover on Sunday.
Can we clarify that you mean a sleep hangover?
A sleep hangover, an energy hangover. Yes, when they were younger. This is younger. Yeah. But as far as the co-ed, so I intentionally wanted to have a house where our sons were comfortable having guests, and I wanted to their guests to be comfortable in the house and purposely set up space in the house for that. It wasn't part of my background, my West Indian background. Your family was always like, but you have a nice bed. Why you want to sleep over someone else's house? That was like, they never understood that. But I understood that I was raising my kids.
Wait, tell me what background?
Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sleepovers are a foreign thing and they don't understand it. And why don't you appreciate this room that I've made for you? So I wanted it to, I always wanted our home to be an option because I knew what was happening in our home. And I knew that I can communicate that to parents. And I was so happy when we got a note for a graduation gift from one of our son's friends. And in the note, he said, I always felt welcome in your home. And I was just like, job well done. I did not plan on the co-ed sleepovers though, which became a thing like the past, 10 years or something. When it was just a friend group, I was like, I can separate them by gender, right? But I hadn't counted on same-sex couples. So then I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how we work this out. I asked our sons, I was like, you got to help me figure out how to work this out. And I just communicated openly with parents, especially if there were same-sex couples in the friendship group. And I was like, what are you comfortable with? What happens in your house? And I think the parents really appreciated that. And the kids, as far as I know, and there's probably a lot I don't know, but as far as I know,
there's a ton you don't know.
Yeah. Having romantic same-sex sleepovers, I was totally against until, of course, the sons started dating people who lived in other places or were already in college when our sons were in high school. So then the college girlfriend would come to visit. And, I did my best. I put one on the second floor, one in the basement, and, camped out in between.
Well, you know what? But then it goes into, is that our American morals? Because I know like in Scandinavian countries, they're like, yeah, whatevs,
Yeah.
So then we start tying it into, is that something, our puritanic American values versus European or whatever. So there's that whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, nothing makes you consider what you're saying, Eka, more than having a gay kid, because pregnancy's off the table. So what am I protecting us from? Right? Like, it's such an interesting thing to think about. Like, what am I afraid of? And I think it is just this feeling like we don't want to see our kids as sexually active. And because otherwise, why wouldn't I just say to my kid who had a boyfriend, like, don't you guys want to just share a room? Why wouldn't you just say that?
I mean, I think it's fraught with so many other things, not just actual physical part of having somebody over at your house or whatever, but it's so many other things that play into what we're, like the whole sexuality and then the whole thing about like, are they drinking? Are they sneaking around? Are they doing drugs in my basement? I guess, I don't know.
I'll just tell you guys, my kids were all just home, and there was the exact place I'm sitting. There was a whole conversation of let's tell mom what we did in high school. So heartbreaking. So let me just tell you, the bubble that I lived in was so tight. Like, I was clueless.
No. I think you're right about not thinking of our kids as sexual and stuff. And I finally, because I swing, like, okay, I understand that you're going to make these decisions, even though my opinion is this, you're going to make another decision. So I always had the house where we had condoms. And I told the parents, if you come in our basement, in the bathroom, there are condoms that children have it's kind of like the gun conversation, but it was condoms in our house. But I finally just had to get comfortable and sit down with our sons and say, listen, because they would tell me in Europe and this and this and that, and they would always find fault in my reasoning. And I was like, listen, it may not make sense to you. And I understand that this is flawed, but this is how I feel about this. And I broke it down. I was like, you know what? If you're going to knock somebody up, you need to do it in the back seat of a car, the good old fashioned way, and not in my house. And they were like, what?
That is funny. All right, Melissa, you haven't jumped in.
I'm listening to all of you, and I'm just realizing what a hippie mom I am. And I guess it probably stems from when I was little. We used to have block parties in my house, and my parents actually hosted this giant sleepover for all the kids in the neighborhood in our basement. Everyone came over with their mattresses and sleeping bags, and there must have been 30 kids down there. Just, I mean, all different ages. It was totally fine. So I just thought it was innocent. And as my kids got older, actually, yeah, when I was in high school, I hosted sleepovers. It was like not a big deal. And we were drinking, I will say that. And it was like, we're not sending the kids home drunk. You know, it's like a safe place. They're not.
Okay, Melissa, you know what? I understand that whole drinking thing, but you know, I remember a friend of mine saying to me one time, well, you know, if they're going to be drinking, at least they're in my basement and it's a sleepover, they're not going anywhere. And I was like, hey, are you going to call me and ask my permission if you're going to let my kid drink in your basement? Just wondering.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
well,
Well,
I'm
we
going to
did
say
do that.
no.
Yeah, we did do that. I did tell like parents that the kids are going to drink, and I mean, just everyone just kind of knew they were going to drink anyway. But like, I don't know. I'm just really open and honest, and like, kids have sex during the day. You know, like what would only happen at night? And also,
Melissa, wait, I want to get this straight. So you would call parents and say they're going to be drinking my basement, and yet the parents would be like, "Yeah, it's all good."
yeah.
Oh, good God, no!
Well, I mean,
I would have said no.
They're not going to get like totally.
Yeah, you can say it. You can say it.
You don't know that. You have no idea.
I do know that because I'm the kind of mom who would probably walk down there and say, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, like whatever. I mean, I know they have sex wherever. If they're gonna have it, they're gonna have it. You know, if they want to have it in front of other people, then like that is their problem and the other people at the party's problem, and like what, you know, whatever.
I just want to
They can't have it in my house. They can't have it in my house. Yeah, they're probably going to have it, and I have the good condoms because, you know, we don't need the discount condoms, but not in my house.
Right there.
Okay, well, you don't think having condoms there sends the message that it can be in your house? Like, was it Halloween candy and take it home with you? Like, what?
So having the condoms there was my concession that even though I prefer life to be a certain way, I understand it's not that way, and I need you to be safe because, I mean, let's be real. Coming home with a baby is the least of the worries if they don't use a condom, right? It could be something else. So they had them there because I live in the real world. But I always said until they got to a certain age, my preference is that you don't actually need these things, that you will wait. But I'm not I live in the real world.
Right. It's like that's what we do when we say alcohol. I hope you won't drink alcohol, but if you get in trouble, call me up and I will come and not ask questions. So we do all of the here's what we hope and here's what we do, what we will do. But then there's that, like, how easy do we make it for them? And I just want to put out there, I love this conversation because what it says to the parents who are listening is there is really not one way to do this.
No.
And like, I have good adult children. I have really good kids. They remind me of it all the time when I tell them, I can't believe what you did in high school. And they say, yeah, but you raised really good kids. So if there was one way to do this, we would all be doing it. It doesn't work that way. And Eka's worked and Melissa's worked and Kamaira's worked and Francisca's, the jury is still a little out, but it seems like kids. And look, we have Jessica right here, and whatever her parents did, she's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say I mean, first of all, I've never, like, any of the boys that I wanted to sleep over were definitely not boys that I wanted to date. So like I'd always been very confused about the no boys sleeping over for most of my life, but I feel like I might be in the minority there. The only time that there's ever been a co-ed sleepover at my house, it was because one of the kids was the sister of one of the other kids who wanted to stay over. And so they just put everybody in the living room in a very kind of public space. And it was just like, I don't think that is that specific scenario. And then, of course, the sister also ended up being a boy later. But that, I think, was a very separate, issue.
Well, I want to put out there that someone recently came up to me and asked me, what would you say about co-ed sleepovers? Because, you know, when you work at your teen, you know everything about parenting.
And everybody asks all the time.
And everybody asks. So I just said, how do you feel about it? Like, do you want your kid to do it? And they said, it was so clear that the mom didn't want to let the kid go. but didn't want the kid to miss out, which is a really hard place to be because your gut is.
I mean, I think that's the root of it. You want your kid to be there. You don't want them to go, but you want them to be there.
Yes.
Right. And those are two competing interests and both valid. So you're going to have to pick one of those. And if your gut is like screaming at you, say no, then you got to say no.
Well,
And
I mean, so you had 5 kids, so
I still do. Thank God I still do.
I mean, but you raised 5 kids, and so you know that each of these decisions is completely based on where you are with that kid at that time.
Yeah.
You know, that's a huge part of it too. Is, you know, our older one, if she would be like, "Can I go down the driveway to pick up the mail?" And I'd be like, "No, I need to watch every second." The other one would be like, "Hey, can I leave for 3 months and go on a journey around the world by myself?" I'd have been like, "Bye, have fun." So, I mean, it really depends on.
I know, but now I've learned that it's not true. That it is just not true. To find out that there was an after prom party in your basement while you were in the house.
Yeah.
I feel your pain, Sue. I was out to dinner with one of our older sons, and it was his one-on-one with the parents, and he drops in the conversation. He's like, "Oh, I was by the house the other day, and 2/3 of the condom supply is gone," and I was like,
Kamira and the condoms. My goodness, that's a topic of conversation at your house.
"Oh my gosh!" I was like,
That's the title of a podcast, a new podcast, Kamira and the Condoms.
We went to the grocery store and bought some more. I was like in shock the whole time, and I was like, "Okay, I don't know who or what, and I don't want to know, but okay."
Dan wrote an article for your teen about when we sent our kids, 2 of our kids started college at the same time. And so he gave them each a box of condoms, and he decides to tell them in the car while they're trapped how his decision-making was so complicated. Because when he was younger, there was like one kind. And he goes through all the different kinds, and he was like, "I'm not buying you extra pleasure, and I'm not buying you the giant size. Like, that's on you if you keep going. You buy." And the kids were like, "Please." Anyway, all right. Well, thank you for this suggestion. It was certainly robust. Anybody have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I do. Just do what works best for your family. You know, I mean, there's no perfect decision.
Yeah.
And you won't even know the repercussions until years later.
Until they're way older and they tell you.
And they tell you, and you're going to be like, "No, please, no."
Okay, Kamira, tell us about tomorrow. New time, new bat channel. Not really, just new time.
Yeah, same bat channels. So whatever channels you're using are your teen social media accounts: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. But it will be a lunchtime conversation instead of the coffee break conversations. We're going to test these out in October. We're switching to lunch. Tomorrow is 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be talking with Debbie Meyer. October is Dyslexia Awareness Month, and we're going to be talking about dyslexia. She is a mom of a dyslexic son and also an advocate who began her advocacy when her son was diagnosed. So she has a lot of interesting things to share because she does some good work in that area.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us. We look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, please send them to editor@YourTeenMag, or you could send them to submissions@YourTeenMag. Both will work, and we will definitely get to your topics. Thanks for being here with us.